Hello, Jeff Minier with Shiloh Baptist Church of Bowie, Maryland. As we consider the idea, if God loved me, he would, and then we find God's answers to fill in that blank. We're going to look at the idea for several times together here. If God loved me, he'd give me perspective. He'd help me to process life, how I'm supposed to handle what's going on. To start out today, I want to touch base with something I mentioned in our last devotional from Isaiah 55. We need to accept as a foundational thought to the way we think, especially about spiritual, moral things. Isaiah 55:8. My thoughts are not your thoughts, nor your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Again, that foundational thought that all of us need to keep close to our hearts when it comes to spiritual, moral issues. My thoughts are not your thoughts, nor your ways, my ways. I want us to look for an illustration into something the Apostle Paul shared in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. It's long enough that I'll have to split this into two studies at least. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. I'll read 7 through 10. Today we're going to look at Paul's initial focus of his situation and see God's response. The next time we get together, Lord willing this Friday, we'll then see Paul's change of perspective and how that changes everything, because he went from his thoughts and his ways to then seeing and processing the perspective of God's thoughts and God's ways. 2 Corinthians 12, 7 through 10. To keep me from being conceited because of the surpassingly great revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why for Christ's sake I delight in weakness, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, and difficulties. For when I'm weak, then I am strong. Again, we're going to start with Paul's initial focus of the situation. He says, to keep me from becoming conceited because of these surpassingly great revelations, there was given to me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. His initial focus, he has an irritant. He describes it as a thorn in the flesh, like a sliver that's gotten sore and infected. The source here, he says that it was a messenger of Satan. Its purpose and a surprise to torment him. There was given to me. He did not expect this. He was surprised at the situation. Initially, he can understand something of this, the context to keep me from becoming conceited. Humility is a deep, deep biblical goal. That'll deserve some of its own Bible studies. Negatively, it's a messenger of Satan to buffet. Nowhere in the Bible does it ever say that Satan's attacks on us are a positive, welcome thing. Satan is the accuser. He is the destroyer. He wants nothing but to destroy those who are made in God's image and to stop God's plan. And so, as a messenger of Satan, this is something very destructive and negative in the Apostle Paul's life. To the Apostle Paul, he seems to view this thorn in the flesh, and we don't know what kind of physical situation, mental situation this was, but it seriously appears that Paul thought it was hampering, shutting down his ability to serve God to be a blessing to other people as he looked to invest in their lives. And so his initial response to this is fervent prayer. I pleaded to the Lord. It is specific prayer. I pleaded to the Lord about this thorn. Take it away. It was a persistent prayer. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. It was a targeted prayer. I pleaded with the Lord. He was pleading with the God of all creation. He was pleading with the Lord, in Old Testament terminology, the covenant-making God, the God who makes promises and keeps them. He's talking to the Lord who sent his Son to die in our place, raised him from the dead so that we would have the power to live obedient in this life no matter what we face. Paul's initial focus on the situation, dear God, please get this out of my life. It is keeping me from serving you the way I should. His response, focused prayer that God would remove it. It is God's response that is initially all about the Isaiah 55:8. My thoughts are not your thoughts, nor your ways my ways, says the Lord. So God responds, 2 Corinthians 12:9. But he said, God had said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. My grace is sufficient for you. Dr. Gerald Weber, former president of Continental Baptist Missions, said, grace is that quality in God that causes him to freely extend his kindness to those who are entirely unworthy. It is God's favor, his enabling favor, given on us who are unworthy. My grace is sufficient for you. My grace is what you need, not the removal of your difficulty. He did not say, I was unaware of your difficulty. He says, my grace is sufficient, parentheses, for you, for your difficulty. For my power, my enablement, that will move and actually touch lives, that which will actually build and be a blessing to you and those you touch. For my power is made perfect. Not perfect in the sense of 100 points on a test of 100. Not perfect as in chemical analysis detail to perfection. It is perfect as in mature and complete, full, overflowing. My power is made complete, perfect, mature in your weakness. Total, roundabout, upside down, inside out from what I would have expected. If God loved me, he'd give me perspective. He'd give me a way to process what's going on in my life so that I could respond to it in a way that would please, honor, and glorify God. And so we see from the Apostle Paul today. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 9. Paul has an initial focus on a situation. I have this thorn. It is stopping me from serving you. God, please remove this thing. It was an irritant. The source was Satan. He is surprised by this. He can see some positives. Yeah, it's humbling me. That's always good. Negatively, Satan is buffeting me. He's keeping me from serving you, Lord. He had a fervent prayer that was specific, persistent, and targeted on God and his grace. And God responds. My grace is what you need to focus on. My grace will be sufficient for you. The power you want to see go out and touch lives, to bless God's kingdom, to make your life richer, deeper, sweeter, is in the very struggle you're facing right now. My grace is sufficient. My power is made perfect in your weakness. That is the very thing all of us fight against. Everything in our culture, everything in the way we are wired, it is in strength that there is joy. It is in freedom. It is in openness of choice. It is in the exertion of my will that we create and enjoy life. And God says, wrong, wrong. It is dependent on my grace as being sufficient. For my power, that which will truly change things for the good, is made mature, complete, perfect in one simple prerequisite: your weakness. Please check back in with us on Friday morning to see how Paul, as he works to bring his perspective around to God's perspective, finds joy in the very thing that had been so irritating to his heart. God's grace be with you.